I don't do much social media, but I look in it. You know, I look see what's going on, and he'd tag me. He'd tag me to it and talk about how he was gonna beat me the up. He was gonna do this to me. Talk about how fat I am, and I'm just like, motherfucker doesn't get it. Every fighter in the UFC, I'm pretty sure the guys knew. Just leave Ben alone. Hope that, you know, Josh Burnett would always say there's always two Bens. We always want the guy that's like sleepy and whatever. That's the guy we can beat easy. He goes, no. He goes, that night I fought. He goes, you got that guy shows up. He goes, because when that guy shows up, Ben Rothwell doesn't lose. And the easiest way to bring that guy out is you talk to me. Because you make it personal. I fight well when it's personal. I don't lose. You know, I treat it like a street fight then.
It is always my pleasure to speak to my next guest, but now, finally, he is the BKFC heavyweight champion of the world. And I want to say I did predict it, although I said second round knockout. He did first round knockout. Always my pleasure to speak to Big Ben Rothwell. Ben, welcome back and congratulations on an amazing performance.
Thank you, sir. Long time coming, man. You've been backing me a long time, so I'm happy to get that belt for you.
Absolutely, man. Listen, I, as a journalist, I have to be unbiased. I can't go in rooting for anybody, but I'm always happy to see someone go out and have that kind of success. We've talked about this since day one in BKFC, wanting this fight, wanting this moment. You finally got it. Could you have written a better ending than what you got on Saturday night?
Dude, I couldn't consciously ask for something like that because it's so unbelievable. You know, I'm like, man,
it was awesome.
Third, fourth round, I'm going to catch him. I'm going to show some stuff off. I'm going to do my head move, do this, do that. Let it be a war. I don't care, you know, because I did. I trained for a war. And for it to go like that, it just, I wouldn't even feel right trying to manifest that in my head. I'm not even kidding. It was too smooth, man.
What's funny is like, I've always said, like, you love to put on a show, you know, from your walkouts and again, you know, things that you do outside of it. And when it comes to trash talk, you don't really say anything bad about your opponents. That's not really your style. I was actually shocked. Mick Terrill was talking trash during fight week. I was like, he's usually like the softest spoken, kind of like, you know, just that's like mild mannered guy. And like during the press conference, I was like, "Where is this coming from?" Like he's talking trash to Ben Rothwell.
You didn't see it wasn't fight week. That motherfucker for the last 4 or 5 weeks, every day. I don't do much social media, but I look in it. You know, I look see what's going on, and he'd tag me. He'd fucking tag me to it and talk about how he was gonna beat me the fuck up. He was gonna do this to me. Talk about how fat I am, and I'm just like, motherfucker doesn't get it. Every fighter in the UFC, I'm pretty sure the guys knew. Just leave Ben alone. Hope that, you know, Josh Burnett would always say there's always two Bens. We always want the guy that's like sleepy, fucking whatever. That's the guy we can beat easy. He goes, no. He goes, that night I fought. He goes, you got that guy shows up. He goes, because when that guy shows up, Ben Rothwell doesn't lose. And the easiest way to bring that guy out is you talk shit to me. Because you make it personal. I fight well when it's personal. I don't lose. You know, I treat it like a street fight then. And
stepping in there, I mean, when you hit him with that shot, he went flying and he went down. I mean, it was so, I wasn't 36 seconds. Whatever. I mean, it was insane. And obviously you've had a lot of big knockouts in your career. You've had a lot of big finishes, but that moment had to feel just so perfect to land that shot and him to go down the way he did. Because I know we talked like after the Todd Duffy fight, like it's certainly not your fault. Like, it was still a good win, but I know you told me like how disappointed you were. You didn't get that satisfying conclusion the way you wanted it. There couldn't have been a more satisfying feeling than just knocking him out the way you did. I mean, it was brutal.
Yeah. Sorry, there was phone getting messed with. So I've had some fast knock in the IFL. I had a 15-second knockout. That was pretty sweet. It was similar in speed, 15 seconds. I had a couple earlier on in my career, but there was only so many eyes on those fights. You know what I mean? Like the biggest wins is I knocked out Overeem. It took a couple minutes, you know, submitting Josh Burnett. Those are my major wins. And they were awesome. And even they don't feel like this one. I mean, this was in front of 17,000 people that absolutely roared and got on their feet and were into it. And to just duffle, you know, it was a full, I made full contact to his head and he duffled him and left him there laying on the ground. That is what I'm talking about. You know, like that's what I wanted to give the California crowd, but it was even better. You know, it was even better in front of the Wells Fargo Center, in front of all those fans. What a way to co-main event, man.
Absolutely. Now you mentioned at the post-fight presser. I know you talked about this earlier today in another interview. We were talking about going to the 31-pound weight cut. I know you mentioned that at the post-fight presser as well. You've always been a professional. You always make weight, but even I didn't realize like it was that much. So I know you talked about it. Can I ask you like, how tough was that? Because when you said that on Saturday, I was like, really? Because again, I've never heard you really mention a lot about a weight cut, but that's a lot of weight to cut for a heavyweight going into a title fight.
Yeah. California, I got my walk around weight down to 296. And then leading up to weight cut day, I was 288. So, you know, we're under 20 pounds. And I got that off relatively not too bad. You know, it was some work, but something this time around, man, I was 306, and so it was a full 31 pounds. And then I got down to Thursday when they did their pre-weight check of me, I was 295. So it was every bit of 20 pounds. It was a 20-pound weight cut. And I'm like, all right, you know, I'm not in that 10-pound range, but we'll get it done. And the first 10 came off okay. The next 10 became one of the greatest challenges of my life. And it was actually, the press conference got an hour and a half, it took an hour and a half away from my place that I had. So I lost an hour and a half. And then we got down to 279.8. And we were at 280. And I went as hard as I could for like another 45 minutes, and we only lost 0.2. At that moment, I was going, fuck me. How am I going to get this last almost 5 pounds off in less than 10 hours? Because I was done. I was done at that moment. And we regrouped. They took me home. They threw me in the bed. I slept an hour. I woke up. I texted George Lockhart. I told him everything that happened. He yelled at me because he didn't feel things were done properly. And he's like, listen, motherfucker, you got one shot. You're going to do exactly what the fuck I said. And so I got everybody together. I woke them all up. Guys were like bumping into the door frames and like rolling out of bed. Cause I was like, get up. Like, we're doing this. And he put together an insane, it's a 10-minute story at minimum that I won't get into, but let's just say that 3 a.m. 4-pound weight cut was the hardest thing I ever did in my life. I shit you not. I have been through some bad shit. I've been through some hard things, and being mummified for 45 minutes, wanting to absolutely rip my arms out and freak out and fucking lose my mind. And I somehow fucking got through it. That when I got on the scale after that and it said 275, I knew I won the fucking fight because I knew mentally there was nothing that was going to stop me at that moment.
That's wild. And I know George. I know George has worked with a lot. I know he's worked with Tyson Fury. He's worked with Conor. He works with a lot of good guys. I mean, I know you gave tribute to him after the fight, but you got to be like, man, to go through that. And that's got to make the knockout even that much more satisfying, right? Because you really had to go through it to get there.
Yeah, I was invested. I knew I was more invested than Mick was. I knew that Mick, I believed he couldn't have done what I did. You know what I mean? He was so worried about my weight. He brought a 50-pound dumbbell to the weigh-ins and checked the weight in front of everybody, basically saying like he didn't believe the scale was right. You know what I mean? Like trying to say that the organization was going to help cheat me through or something. And the scale said 50 pounds, and he had to eat shit. And I think it's just like Todd Duffy. I think they get so in their head about it that when I hit the scale, they lose. They're like, oh shit, like. He did it. And like, I'm already winning right then and there.
And the thing about Mick, Mick, I mean, listen, Mick's been around. Was he like 11 fights, bare knuckle, 12 fights? He's got a lot of experience, fought a lot of guys.
Boxing and kickboxing before BKFC even started.
Yeah. Is there any party that feels like he was almost trying to talk himself into it? Because even as champion, like, don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking the guy. I'm not saying he's not a good fighter, but like, is there any party that feels like he was trying to talk himself into being able to beat you? Because going through all that, the weight cutting, the comments, all that kind of stuff, it's almost like he had to psych himself up to like give him a chance to actually go in there and beat you. It didn't work out.
I was already pissed off to a point, and then when they did my introduction in the ring, and I put my hand up and I snap, I do my thing. He turns to his corner man and they start laughing. And I'm like, you're fucking dead, man. I'm like, you're fucking late. Like, you think that's funny? You think that's fucking funny? I'm gonna punch you in the fucking head in about 10 seconds. You think that's funny? All right. So I don't know where he was at mentally. I don't know if he was scared, trying to talk himself up. I think there was certainly some insecurity there.
We go back a long ways, Ben. When we first met, it was in the IFL. Obviously, we talked a lot during your UFC career, and you mentioned a couple of your biggest wins. I think the one that always stands out for me is when you choke out, when you submit Josh Barnett. That's a huge moment because Josh Barnett is a legend, especially in the grappling game. Obviously, knocking out over again. You've had big moments. I don't want to sound like I'm downgrading any of those moments. But how sweet was it? Because I just talked to Jeremy Stevens a little bit ago, and I said there's certain guys that when they go in there, you're like, this was a sport made for them. You, Mike Perry, Jeremy Stevens, you guys have had incredible MMA careers. But I'm like, you were carved for bare knuckle. So I know it's kind of prisoner of the moment because you just did it literally hours ago, really, not even that long ago. Is that the most satisfying, the biggest win of your career? Just doing what you did?
I'm very proud of the Barnett and Overeem combo because it shows that I was a very well-rounded fighter. And there were huge moments. I had viral moments with my interviews and the talks and the go-go show, all that stuff, right? This was it, man. You know what I mean? None of those fights weren't in front of 17,000 people. Those are major UFC fights, and they weren't 17,000 people. 17,000 people on their feet screaming. That fucking made it awesome. Dave Feldman's hometown, the BKFC's hometown, like, we hit a grand slam that night. And for me to come in and just top it off, yeah, man, it was an epic moment. And they put a belt on me, my first world title. Yeah, it was incredible.
And listen, since the day you signed with BKFC, two things you mentioned to me several times. One, you said this sport is kind of giving you longevity because you're not killing your body going through an MMA camp the way you were. And you said how much healthier you are training for bare knuckle versus what you had to do to put your body through hell for MMA. But two, you've been the biggest fan of BKFC since you've been there. You've been pumping them up and saying how much you love fighting there and how much you enjoyed this organization. Is it almost like the most satisfying moment, not only because you knock out and you become their champion, but it's like you've been a champion of them already. Like, even before you had that belt around your waist, you were a champion of bare knuckle. Now it feels like the two are very symbiotic in a way. Like, you guys have finally come together. You are now officially the champion. It just felt like that perfect moment because you again, I don't think BKFC's had a bigger fan than you since you stepped in there for the first time. You've praised this organization and how big it could be. And then to have that moment on Saturday night, Connor comes in there, they get the belts around 17,000 people at the prelims, by the way, which I thought was insane. They were there for the first fight of the night. And then to see, you could not have written a better, this is a movie. Yeah. It was a script.
Yeah. Because my very first fight in the BKFC, a lot of my friends were like UFC fans watching me, and my first fight is in Monroe, Louisiana. Ding, 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 ding. And there's 2,000 people there. I go from like headlining co-main event in UFC to 2,000 people in Louisiana. And they, I saw the little group show up and I got that cool viral knockout. It kind of kickstarted it, but it's just like, all right, we're in like are we in the B League or is it C League? I don't know. But I liked it. And I just hoped for the best. And the very next show, they follow up with BKFC in Denver. The Conor McGregor showed up, and they sold 8,000 tickets. We go from 2,000 to 8,000. I'm like, all right. And I had a pretty good fight with Copeland. People got into that fight. It wasn't a clean knockout. It was just a good old-fashioned 3-round beating. And, that had a nice spark to it. And I remember David Feldman said that was their night. Like, they felt like they turned a corner that night. And I got to be there. So now I'm in. I'm like, all right, this thing's headed somewhere. And then Ariel Helwani had me on, like other, you guys were, I got more interviews, so to speak, like more traction, more people reached out to me, and I felt like a good buzz going. And then, and Platinum Perry was getting talked about. It was after that show, he's getting talked about all over the place. So I kind of felt like, wow, I was kind of seeing this, like we really turned a corner right then and there. And then California, it's not bad. Like, first show in California, we sell out that arena. I think that was a decent crowd. And I was just upset because my opponent basically laid down. But it was not a bad thing. I felt like it had good hype. but the BKFC had other stuff going on besides that show. Like that show wasn't the end all. They had these shows going on all around around the world. And Connor was involved then and really pushing the thing. So I could feel it. And then here we are, fight number 4. And now this shit, now we went from 2,000 to 17,000 people since I've been with them. Yeah, man, what a ride. It's not been a roller coaster. It's literally just trajected up the whole time. And man, I can't wait to see where this goes, because I believe we made a whole bunch of fans Saturday night worldwide. And I think some of these events are really going to blow up. And I'm excited because I also like to say we're not the UFC. We're not boxing. We're the third entity. We're the third entity that can be just as big as those two. We're not here to compete with those two. We're just here to be our own thing. So I think there's a lot of good things at stake here.
When I tweeted out about the attendance on Saturday, somebody's like, well, I don't know how much they're charging for tickets and blah, blah, blah. And I said, listen, I know promotions in the United States, I'm not going to name names, but they give away tickets and they can't get 2,000 people in the door.
And I know people that bought $750 tickets, $400 tickets, $150 tickets. So even if they gave some away, I know there was thousands of people that bought expensive tickets.
Yeah. You can't give away tickets to some shows. You can't, to get over 17,000 people in that arena. That is insane. That's
true story.
The UFC is the only other one who could do that. That's
right.
It.
And true story. Here, to any of those naysayers, my friend had 4 $400 tickets. He ended up getting his suite. He had 1 hour before the event started. He put them on whatever for $500 a piece. He sold them in less than an hour before the event started. True story.
Yeah, I mean, that energy was insane. Like, and the card delivered. I mean, obviously your knockout delivered. The whole card, I was writing as fast as I could because every fight was a knockout. And I was like, this guy got knocked out. This guy got knocked out.
How many fights have we watched, Damon, where you have this awesome undercard and then the middle card's okay, and then the main event going and suck balls? You know what I mean? There was a lot of pressure because I'm watching this fucking sick knockouts. People are going crazy. I can hear the crowd through 2 layers of concrete brick. I can hear them like in my room. I'm like, oh shit. Like, we're watching the fights. Like I kind of was already like programmed to do what I'm going to do, but like I needed, and like I said, the whole show went like this. And for me to give that, to literally lay a body down for 5 minutes, the whole show just delivered. It was so awesome.
Yeah. Absolutely. Jeremy Stevens, credit to him, like capping off the show. Him and Eddie put on a show. It was just an incredible night. With that being said, Ben, like, again, you've earned this moment. You've relished this moment. Can I ask, like, when you talked to Dave Feldman afterwards, because I know you've been a big fan of Dave Feldman, how excited are you for the future now? Because now you are the heavyweight champion. You are the representative. Now, I would argue, and I think you'd probably agree, you were already, I'm saying this, and I mean zero offense. When I write about you, I do a story about Ben Rothwell, it does better than when I write a story about Mick Terrill. No offense. So you were already the bigger name, but now you are the champion. Now you are the representative of the organization. So how excited are you for what comes next? I know you told me before you really want to get them to Wisconsin at some point. That'd be a dream come true. We're going to talk about potential fights, but how excited are you to take that next step of being a representative of this organization as champion? Because you're already a big name, but now you're holding the belt.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm hoping that we can get a faster turnaround than last time. So last time it was, this is almost a year. That I'm 43, man. The clock's ticking. It's ticking quick. Like I have a lot on my table. I'm lucky I made this work, but I got my wife situated. We're like, I'm the champ. She's like, all right, I'm going to give you a year here. We're hoping we get something done this summer. And then we already have some fight offers on the table for the fall, winter. AK Mark Hunt, Italy is a big one. I'm open to however I can help the BKFC and defend, or sometimes they allow guys to like do something on the side. So maybe I could do a gloved match with somebody, and then while the BKFC is getting a fight ready. But I'm happy to finish my career here. I mean, I've been supporting them. I hope when I'm done fighting, I can even work with them. Like I get along very well with the BKFC staff. So I think I have a lot to offer outside of fighting. I have a lot of knowledge of, I've thrown my own shows. I've worked with the biggest shows. I see a lot of things that maybe I could help enforce. So that's kind of where the future at. Right now, I know that Wisconsin has ready to sign to make it legal in Wisconsin. They have it, all the legislation's done. They're ready to sign. The only thing is they want is the BKFC to be the first event. They don't want to legalize it and then have some rinky-dink show. They want the BKFC to come. And I know the only way the BKFC is going to come is if they had a Wisconsin fighter to possibly main event. So everything's lining up. The planets all lined up. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like my time. 2025 seems like it's really, really a hell of a way to kick the year off. So I would really like to get 2 more fights in, honestly. If that can happen, I just don't know. Because the BKFC has left me a little bit in limbo the whole since I started. I'm like, man, what are they doing? What are they doing? All of a sudden something big, it'll be worth waiting. It's always awesome. It's just, sometimes it just takes longer than I would want.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're in a good situation now, Ben. Like, I remember talking to Mike Perry about this. Like, Mike was very honest with me. He said, listen, he knows he's a name, but he's like, I still want another name. Like, I want a good B side. I don't want to be the only A side. Like, I want to bring in. And so that's why the Rockhold fight and the Thiago Alves fight and the Eddie Alvarez fight, they were just that much bigger. Because again, you got 2 sticks of dynamite. It's still better than just 1 stick of dynamite. So I know on Saturday you mentioned, listen, I'll be honest, I don't think it would happen, but I love that you mentioned it in Ngannou. I was like, oh my gosh, what an insane fight that would be. But I think the Mark Hunt thing, obviously he already responded. I think that's more realistic. Would that be the perfect scenario, those big marquee fights where an Ngannou or a Mark Hunt would be? And I mean, obviously there's other good heavyweights in BKFC. I'm not knocking them, but I said, going into the fight, you were already a bigger name than Mick Terrill. That's not a knock on Mick Terrill. It's just that's your body of work, who you've been your entire career. Would that be the ideal scenario to get? I just got
the BKFC fan, the hardcore BKFC fan. I got their respect because they thought Mick was going to mollywop me. They didn't really think I'm a good bare knuckle fighter. So I kind of got them like, oh, they're like, okay, Rothwell's for real. What I'm missing is the MMA and the boxing side. They had no idea. They didn't give a shit about Mick Terrill. I still stand by that. So I want to pull those fans in now with the BKFC. How? By bringing in those names. I want to heap respect on this belt. I want it to be like worldwide, every organization. Oh, the BKFC champ is not to be messed with. Like, he's right there with the baddest men on the planet of these other organizations. Like, I need to be brought into that conversation. It isn't going to happen unless I get to beat those guys, those names.
Yeah. Do you feel like the Mark Hunt one is probably the most realistic because he's actually available? And I know he already mentioned on Twitter, like, he's into it.
It could happen easy and with the BKFC. Now, some of the other, I was saying Anthony Joshua, Francis, the guys that maybe have beat them, that's the box. I think the boxing side, I'm not really going to pull. I'm not calling out Tom Aspinall or John Jones. Like, nothing to do with the UFC. We're not doing MMA. Those guys aren't coming over here. No one's leaving the UFC, so they're just pretty much off the table. My only is just free agents and some of these boxers. I think that's my pool of guys I can fight. And any of those top name boxers, everyone's going to make me a 10-1 underdog. So that's great for bettors because I land my strikes on any of those guys' chin like I did on Mick. I'm telling you, they'll all end up the same. I know that without a doubt.
Yeah, I love it. And listen, again, like the Ngannou thing, I love that idea. I mean, he seems to have a lot of power. And I mean, no offense, but like his last fight in PFL, there weren't 17,000 people there.
No.
Weren't, so it's still, I don't know if he'd do it. Like I said, I always say bare knuckles are different animals. Some guys aren't built for bare knuckles. Some guys aren't like that. So I think the Mark Hunt fight's probably more realistic, and Mark Hunt's an old school guy. You guys have history. I think that's probably the perfect one right now. But again, what I love about BKFC is like, I'm sure you've seen it. Like today, fighters who are in the UFC are like, I got to do this one day. I want to do, like, that's how big BKFC is getting. Guys are like, I mean, Conor McGregor, who is inarguably the biggest star this sport has ever seen. Yes, I know he has a vested interest, but doesn't mean he has to do it. I take him seriously. Like, he wants to do it. Will he do it?
I think he does. I think he wants to do it. He genuinely is about it. He loves striking. He loves boxing. You know what I mean? Like, that's his thing. Yeah, him and I both know MMA. We know how to do so. He loves to fucking punch somebody. Let's just be honest.
Yeah. So I mean, now we're seeing that like guys who were like, 2 years ago, they'd be like, oh, this bare knuckle thing, whatever. Now they see what happened on Saturday night. It's like this transformation guy's like, I want to do that. That's going to bring over the name. So again, when we say Ngannou, we're saying, maybe not. He's under contract. He's doing boxing, whatever. I don't discount it could happen. I don't think I think there's a real world.
I mean, social media wise, BKFC, we're all over the place this weekend. We didn't compete against the UFC. Yeah, there's some other sports going on, but as in the fighting realm, I felt like we got a lot of press. I feel like I was all over the place this weekend.
Yeah. So would the perfect scenario be? You said summertime. I know you mentioned Italy, and then would the perfect world be like close out 2025 in Wisconsin? Would that be like the perfect?
No, they're saying Italy for BKFC is going to be in the fall or winter. So there'd be some fight there. So I'm trying to push, maybe get us to Wisconsin this summer early.
Okay.
Can't be the middle of summer. It's got to be early. So we got to kind of get moving on it if we're going to do it. If they're going to do like July, I would say don't come to Wisconsin. In fact, honestly, for max ticket sales, we should go to Chicago. Honestly, I mean, they're both like home cities to me. And Chicago would sell more, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I've been to both. I'm in the Midwest myself, in Ohio, but I'll tell you right now, I'd much rather go to Chicago in June or July than I would like December. So let's get a summertime show. I think that worked. I've been to Milwaukee before in the summer. I like Milwaukee, gorgeous city. I don't know that I'd really want to go there in January. It's a little rougher up there in January. So
it's like Philadelphia, man. Philadelphia was rough.
Yeah, it was cold. It was cold. But man, I tell you what, it was hot in that arena. It was so cool to see it, man. And I was like, I knew after you won, I was like, I don't know when he's going to see this. I texted you immediately. I was like, I know it's probably going to be, it could be 2 days before you see this, but I wanted you to know. I was like, congrats, man, because I know it's been such a long time coming. And of course, you did text me back that night, and I appreciate that. But what an incredible night, man. I mean, I could not have wished it for a better moment for you. You've earned it. You've been here. You deserved it, man. And it was just awesome. It was just so cool.
Thank you so much.
Well, congratulations again, Ben, man. Enjoy that title. Like I said, next time we talk, we got to have like the frame title behind you or something. Now you got that belt, see that championship. But man, I think, like I said, I think there's Mike Perry, there's Jeremy Stevens, there's Ben Rothwell. I think we're talking about the three biggest stars of BKFC now. And I can't wait to see what you do next. So, I'll be watching. Congratulations again, man. You deserve it. You earned it. And thank you as always for taking time for me. I appreciate it.
Right on, man. I appreciate you just as much.